Um, absolutely fine. We're so fine. Yeah. We're fine. We're fine. Absolutely fine. Nothing happened. Computer did not crash. Totally did not. No crashy here. None whatsoever. Nothing happened. I swear. Hi. Yeah, we're back. You know what? Since I didn't save, we're gonna start the whole route over again. I may have unlocked the achievement, but there was no save file. But at least I'll get to have my audio. So, let's just roll it back and just play the intro again. Thank you for following, Seal. Oh, God. And thank you for telling me that this piece of shit program wasn't giving audio, even though it looked like it was giving audio. I need to learn this song. Yeah, OBS just... Anyway, I need to learn this song, and then do a cover of it. And of Kyoto Winds as well. Except I know Kyoto Winds opening. I haven't played much of Edo Blossoms. Out of curiosity, have you played Hakuoki? And who is best boy? I have done off-stream Yamazaki and Saito, and then through streaming we've done Kazuma, Hijikata, Okita, Nagakura, and Sanan, which is what we're doing right now. I think that was everyone. Ooh. As far as I am aware, Yamazaki is my best boy. I'm playing through all routes for 2 specific videos. One is a missed opportunities videos with Hakuoki, because I've been just making that a series for games that I love, and I put a bunch of research on it. And then the second one is just a top 12 list, because I have to. Alright, now please, today, do not crash anymore. We're starting over! Was that like 30 minutes that I have to redo? Oh, Lord. Alright, it's time to read again. Winter 1864. In order to find my father with whom I'd lost contact, I, Chizuru Yukimura, visited Kyo. In that city, I bore witness to a horrifying secret hidden within a group called the Shinsengumi, the Fury, a creature with white hair and crimson eyes. Luckily, I was saved from the vicious clutches of the Furies by the members of the Shinsengumi. Because I had discovered the Shinsengumi's secrets, it was proposed that I live with the Shinsengumi men since they were also searching for my father. I was given the position as the commander's page, and thus my life with the Shinsengumi began. I'd heard rumors, well, whispers really, that the Shinsengumi were little more than a bunch of crooked ronin, but my life with them proved otherwise. Their commitment to protect the safety of Kyo made them the last of a dying breed, true samurai. Among the Shinsengumi ranks was Keisuke Sanan, their cunning, pensive colonel, who was entrusted to console Chief Kondo and Commander Hijikata. He was a talented swordsman and possessed an eye for strategy, that is, until an ill-fated injury left him unable to wield his katana, and he became a recluse. He retreated from the public eye, a point of concern, exacerbated by the sudden arrival of Kashitaro Ito, the Shinsegumi's newly appointed deputy commander. In an act of desperation to cure his afflicted arm, Sanan-san consumed the water of life, transforming into a fury to reside in the Shinsengumi's shadows. All of a sudden, their well-kept secret was becoming harder to keep, as battles were waged against vicious demons and experiments became far more commonplace. There was no stopping the tide of change, however, because war never fucking ends. Never changes. The fate of the shogunate was threatened by the Sacho, which later culminated in an inevitable battle for control of the nation. Sanan-san was learning to hone his skills as a fury to shatter the illusion that he was little more than a monster and defend against the impending war. The initial fervor I'd seen in Sanan-san's eyes when I had first arrived in Kyo all those years ago was restored when he had dedicated himself to a strict training regimen. However, when a nefarious plot involving furies came to light at the hands of my father and brother, Kaoru Nagumo, it was Sanan-san who rescued me. Unfortunately, the battle ended in favor of the Sacho, and the Shinsengumi were driven from Kyo. They set sail for Edo in hope of a new start. So how badly is Sanan-san's route gonna break me? Because we just did Hijikata-san's, and that one, oh god, it broke me so bad. I legit cried like 3 times. I don't know if I'm ready for anything anymore. Oh god. Listen, Yamazaki breaks me every time because he dies in every fucking route. Except his own. Hada does during Kazuma's route absolutely broke me as well. Because at that point, I had just learned actual history of the Shinsengumi, and once I saw the name Ueno, I just went, please no! I can't wait to show that reaction in the in the list. It hurt, but I'm also surprised that they didn't add. If there were routes to be added, there's so much potential. I will always defend the point that Nomura needs one, and at least Amagiri and Shiranui as well. But anyway. The Shinsengumi sailed to Edo in forlorn spirits after having been thoroughly crushed during the Battle of Toba Fushimi, along with the shogunate army. Chief Isami Kondo, alongside the rest of our injured soldiers, were being expertly and diligently treated by Matsumoto-sensei at a clinic in Yokohama. Another notable absence in the Shinsengumi was Okita, whose respiratory condition had worsened enough to require his relocation to Sendagaya. Sanan's route in Kyoto Winds mentions Okita several times, and I have become confused as to what it means. And I need to figure out what happened. All the while, the Shinsengumi temporarily regrouped their base of operations in Shinagawa at the Kama Inn, fighting the urge to dwell on their sore losses. With the chief in serious treatment, our commander had been traveling tirelessly to Edo Castle to garner support with the Bakushin for a retaliatory strike. I also can't English. Having neither Kondo-san nor Hijikata-san at our headquarters was noticeably irritating many of the men who had not much else to do, and morale continued to suffer. What will become of us? How much more of fate's cruel command can the Shinsengumi cope with? These sentiments were gathering steam for everyone in the Shinsengumi, and on one such brisk evening,
Edo 市中の見回りをしたいだと。
ええ、つまりは巡察です。
Hijikata-san had returned back to Kama Inn and was welcomed immediately with a request from Sanan-san.
元より京にいた時代から我々新選組の本分は市中の治安維持。それは江戸に来ても変わらないでしょう。
言いたいことはわかる。だが今はそれどころじゃねえだろう。動ける大使もそう多くはないんだ。
いいえ、今だからこそですよ。最近のここは無残なほどに活気がありません。長倉君たちに至っては憂さを晴らすかのように毎晩酒を飲み歩く始末。
That's because Nagakura took them all out drinking. It's the only thing they can do.
皆伏見奉行所での敗戦で打ちのめされ、己の道を見失いくすぶっているのです。
だから今何か目的を与えて少しでも発散させとこうってわけか。
それに江戸の民への宣伝にもなります。夜の巡察なら羅刹隊も出られますしね。
何もしないよりはマシか。分かった。俺の方で手はずを整えておく。三男さんは羅刹隊を頼む。
Hijikata-san conceded, albeit reluctantly, giving himself a beat of pause before approving Sanan-san's suggestion. I, on the other hand, had been gathering empty teacups on the table, listening to the discussion quietly before clearing my throat to address Sanan-san. Do you really think that's a good idea?
何がです？
I understand that performing rounds and guarding the city is pertinent, but Sanan-san had been severely working himself to the bone. Unlike other Furies, he chose not to sleep during daylight hours. Instead, he had been heavily invested in researching the water of life to find a breakthrough. You're straining yourself. If you add nighttime rounds to your list of duties, then you can't rest.
いえ、多少の苦労など大したことではありませんよ。
I have to say this again. All the boys just run themselves fucking ragged.
その苦労すらできなくなってしまった人たちもいるのですから。
You're right. Inoue, in an effort to protect me, sacrificed his own life in the Battle of Toba Fushimi and was slaughtered. So too was Yamazaki-san, who attempted to consume the water of life to preserve his last moments of life. Two of our most cherished allies were needlessly killed in Kyo, and my chest tightened thinking about it. My boy! Sanan-san adopted a hushed tone, murmuring softly as his eyes dropped to the ground, not drooped.
あの時落ち水があれば二人とで助かったかもしれない。だから私は今後も薬の研究を続けます。実際に用いるかは別の問題としてあって困るものではないはずですから。
Neither choice seemed to carry any sense of allure. The first was to endure pain to endure death painfully as a human would, or to live on as a fury, relegating oneself to little more than a ghost in the Shinsengumi's shadow. Even so, living on was admittedly generous in its description, and death is less of an option than it is an unavoidable sentence. Sanan-san twiddled his fingers in silent contemplation, so I attempted to offer some levity. You know, come to think of it, I can think of something that might be able to aid your research.
協力というと?
Since we're in Edo now, I could lead you to the house where I grew up. Father? Father? Father might have left some documents pertaining to his own research on the water of life, so it might be worth a shot to snoop around. Sana-san and I set off by sundown of the next day. It had been nearly 4 years since I had last set foot inside of it, my time having been occupied in Kyo. Yukimura Clinic was in deterioration from a period of neglect, triggering a queasy sense of guilt inside of me as Sana-san and I observed the house's exterior.
なるほど。ここが雪村くんの実家というわけですか。女性の実家を訪れるなら手土産の一つも持ってくるべきでしたかね。
I'm just staring at Sanan-san, and I'm like, he has to be pretty tall, right? And Chizuru has to be at least like 5'2". I'm shorter than her, which means Sana-san would be extremely tall. Sanan-san chuckled awkwardly at his own joke, and I smiled nervously as I slid the front door open. Upon entry, the scent of my home hit me with nostalgia. A thick coat of dust covered every surface in sight. The front yard was overgrown with tall weeds, poking through the cracked stone walkway. I examined my home like a piece of amber, wondering what kind of secrets had been trapped and lost in time within its limited confines. One after the other, I pulled open dusty drawers. No page went unturned as Sanan-san and I rifled through notebooks and stacks of wrinkled parchment. It was an excavation of my childhood. Although no immediate signs of clues reared its head, I was attempting to parse something deeper in its hollow, abandoned house. In this hollow, abandoned house, my memories. Yeah, he's tall. He's a tall boy. Listen, I'm 4'9". That is very tall. I'm very short. I see countless books on Western medicine, but Dutch studies, educational materials imported by the Dutch that cover an expansive range of topics, namely in the fields of cultural and technological studies. There doesn't seem to be anything here that's connected to his Fury research.
となれば探すべきは普段は想像もしない場所ですね。
As Sanan-san paced around the room, he puts deliberate pressure on the tatami mat with the balls of his feet, shifting his weight while staring curiously at the floor. After repeating this process a couple more times, he tilted his head, quickly ducking to the ground and placing his hand upon the spot.
なるほど。ここですか。
What are you doing?
この部屋を歩き回ってみたとき、ここだけ床板のきしむ音が違ったんですよ。外れたら修理するつもりでしたが、私の勘も捨てたものではありませんね。
Sanan-san lifted the mat and began pulling at the floorboard to reveal a hollow space underneath. He smirked wearily, and from the hole, he started to grab conspicuously hidden stacks of documents. Yeah, that seems about right. Whoa, I never thought he'd hide them here. This whole time, these were sitting under my nose.
私も半信半疑でしたけどね。見つかったのは沖田くんのおかげですよ。彼は土方くんの隠した句集を見つけるたび、自慢げに武勇伝を話してくれましたから。
Yes, the haiku collection refers to Hyogyoku haiku collection, comprised of poems written by Hijikata-san, the collection of very horrible poems and shit. I have no idea if that's been published publicly or if Hijikata's family just hanging on to it. But, I can see why Okita would try to find whatever he's hidden them. Wait a second. Hijikata-san kept his haiku hidden under the floorboards and Okita found them? Imagining Okita beaming with pride after having found Hijikata-san's haikus softened the tension of Sanan-san uncovering the artifacts of father's secrecy. I can see the grinning face that Okita would have. God damn it, Soji! I grabbed a stack and began flipping through them, holding my breath as I sunk myself into their contents.
打ち水の元となったのは、遥か西欧に住むという鬼の血液である。原液の量が限られているため、現在は希釈しての利用が主となるが、いずれ枯渇するのは明白。となれば、一刻も早く落ち水の培養法を確立せねばならない。高堂さんがいつから羅刹の研究をしていたのかは分かりませんが、新選組へあの薬をもたらした時にはすでにある程度知識があったようですね。にもかかわらず私たちには詳細を伏せ、対処法も示すことはなかった。私たちの羅刹を実験と呼んだのはそういう意味だったわけですか。
The more documents Sanan-san and I read through, the more troubled our expressions became. It was almost midnight when Sanan-san and I had sifted through the majority of Father's notes. At this point, I'm wondering, why didn't you guys just take the pile of notes with you back to the inn? Look here. Look here. In this document, it mentions something about a medicine that can counteract bloodlust.
ええ、ただしこれだけでは発作が起きた時の対症療法に過ぎません。しかし、もしもこの薬を突き詰めることができたなら。
We can revert the serum's effects. Is that right, guide? Yeah, I gotta remember what it is. Do you believe there's a possibility that eventually we can revert Furies back to their human form?
そうですね。羅刹の特徴を完全に抑えられれば、それはもう人と変わらない。高堂さんが治せるとほのめかしたのも、あるいはそういうことかもしれません。
Emotions were conflicting in Sanan-san's tired eyes as he stared in dejection up towards the ceiling.
人に戻るですか。少なくとも選択の余地なく悩む時間すら与えられずに羅刹になってしまった者たち、そういう大使たちにとってはこれは救いになるかもしれませんね。
There was a hint of hesitation in Sanan-san's voice as he spoke, which perhaps should have been my first sign. Before I could ask him to clarify his feelings, Sanan-san curtly slammed the book shut. A glistening ray of moonlight eked through the clouds amidst a backdrop of scattered stars. Sanan-san and I shared little conversation as we made our return to Kama Inn, seeing as we had been too occupied reading through more stacks of documents. Our first method of verifying the document's truth was following the medicine's recipe as closely as possible. And it's done. I held the finished concoction in my hand nervously, wiping my sweaty forehead with the back of my other forearm. Well, I guess there's no way of knowing if it works or not without a test subject in front of us, but if someone happens to suffer a bout of bloodlust in the near future, hopefully it'll help in some way.
とりあえずはこれを使ってみましょう。ですが、家に残していたところを見ると、おそらくこの研究は行動さんにとっては重要度が低い。本当に重要な情報はおそらく彼の頭の中。できれば彼と接触したいところですね。
My problem with this logic is you guys are on completely different sides of the field, and I doubt he'd tell you anything. I agree, but ever since... Thanks, phone, for telling me about the phone bill being paid. I agree, but ever since Toba Fushimi, I haven't had any communication with him, let alone seen him. To tell you the truth, I've got no idea where he is.
ですが、また君を狙ってくる可能性は非常に高い。だから今後は十分に気をつけて。
And it's time for round one yet again. Sanan-san, what's the matter? Oh no. Sanan-san began stuttering, clutching his chest in pain. His voice became scratchy and staggered. I watched in horror as the color of his eyes flickered. There could be no mistaking what I was witnessing. He was experiencing a bout of bloodlust. I should give him blood. My first inclination was to hand Sanan-san the medicine we had just produced, but would offering him an untested batch of medicine really do him any good in his desperate state? I could spare no more seconds of hesitation. My mind was frantic, reaching out of reflex. Reacting out of reflex, not reaching. Hold on! I hastily unsheathed my kodachi, sliding the blade's honed edge against my wrist before timidly stretching the bloodied limb out towards Sanan-san. I gasped, watching Sanan-san's eyes widen at the sight of blood dripping viscously from the fresh cut.
何の真似ですか?
You mentioned that blood is the only true way to mitigate your bloodlust, right? Please, take my blood. He could tolerate his insatiable cravings no longer. Sanan-san's face warped in agony, and he suddenly lunged his face towards to lick my oozing wound. A dull pain pinched my arm where Sanan-san was licking. It didn't hurt, though. In fact, it was almost soothing. I felt my back tighten as Sanan-san's tongue sipped mouthfuls of blood, as if he were afraid of wasting a single drop. And that part just ends like that. What the fuck? Also, Sana-san, zero hesitation, unlike everybody else. Where's my water? Please drink water and do not die. I should not be the only one drinking water. Or whatever beverage of your choice, I suppose. Nearly a month had passed since our ship dropped its anchor in Edo's port. The Shinsengumi declared its intent to depart from... The Shinsengumi declared its intent to depart from Kama-in, moving its headquarters to a mansion owned by the city's Hatamoto, with its men in tow. The spiritual wound sustained from the defeat in Toba Fushimi lingered ominously, but thankfully we could take some joy in the progress of a new move. Luckily for us, our move coincided with the return of several of our injured warriors, whose recovery had cast a dark cloud over the fate of our organization. Our anticipation was hot for one individual in particular.
いや、みんなすまなかった。留守中は随分と苦労をかけたようだな。
So Dad's back! Please, don't worry. All that matters to us is that you're safe, Kondo-san. How is your shoulder?
もちろんだとも。と言いたいところだが、まだ刀を持つのにも苦労してな。
The chief of the Shinsengumi had returned. With him, a thundering bellow echoed throughout the halls of the new headquarters. Kondo-san gazed proudly around the hall, staring at each of the captains, including Heisuke and Sanan-san, who feigned smiles in response to Kondo-san. So I'm gonna guess at this point there's no point in keeping Heisuke and Sanan as a secret anymore, and that's why they're in this room. Because I'm assuming it's daytime. And if that's the case, then that means some, like the rest of the Shinsengumi group knows absolutely what's going on. That's my theory, because it's never explained.
それにしても、みんな随分と様変わりしたじゃないか。どこの異国に迷い込んだかと思ったぞ。
I nodded with him politely, discreetly gazing out of my peripherals to the surprising sight beside us. Kondo-san had highlighted something peculiar. The opportunity for new horizons hadn't been limited to a mere change of scenery, as the Shinsengumi also forewent their usual attire. Unlike their traditional long flowing kimonos, they were adorned in tight, well-tailored clothing that had recently caught wind in European fashion.
鳥羽伏見の戦で俺たちの戦い方が古いもんだってのがはっきりした。
Does that also include fashion, Hijikata? Because this was your choice.
俺たちもここからは銃を主体とした西洋風の戦いになれる必要がある。服を改めたのはその第一歩だ。
今はまだ落ち着かないところもありますが、慣れれば問題はないかと。
Hijikata-san, Saito-san, and the rest of the soldiers were stretching their limbs playfully, basking in the novelty of wearing unconventional clothing. I think so far for this one, when they get their uniforms, the best person that has the best reaction is, as far as I've seen, is Nagakura. Because he just, it's just the best thing. He decides to flex, and that's just, he's being playful. I fucking love that reaction out of him because it's so Nagakura, but it's just the best reaction. Of all the gentlemen flexing in their new dapper attire, however, the one who stood out most was the Shinsengumi snake.
どうかしましたか、雪村君。
No reason at all.
それは残念ですね。てっきり私の姿に見惚れて黙り込んだのかと思いましたが。
It's not like that.
そうですか。では私の姿など 全く気にもならない
No, I didn't mean anything by it. You look quite, dashing.
それは着替えた甲斐がありました
Sanan-san possessed conversational tact. In this instance, it felt like a ploy to coax something out of me, unlike the way that Okita does it, which is just teasing the fuck out of you. Until he gets what he wants. Sanan-san at least has tact. This is why there is a soundboard somewhere in Discord where it's just me saying fuck you Okita, because that is a counter that we need. And it comes up too often. I have a love-hate relationship with Okita. That included. A groomed folded collar hung loosely around his slender neck. His outfit was sharp, accentuated by tastefully worn gloves underneath burgundy and gold jacket cuffs. Truly a uniform to contemplate his intellect.
服が変わって心機一転、各自気合が入っているのはいいことだ。よし、この勢いで甲府城を手に入れよう。
Kondo-san went quiet, glancing around the room sternly. Under shogunate command, the Shinsengumi was ordered to mobilize and march to Kofu Castle in order to ambush the occupying imperial army forces. As a gesture of good faith, the shogunate rewarded the Shinsengumi with tantalizing riches and recruits. However, the true token of generosity to ensure the Shinsengumi's loyalty was in the designation of title, status, and nomenclature to Kondo-san as a Hatamoto. If the campaign to take Kofu Castle was successful, then the fortress and holdings were there for Kondo-san's taking, which naturally bolstered his spirits.
近藤さん、そのことなんだが、金でかき集めた連中を引き連れて戦えって上の連中は本気で言ってんのか？
戦すること自体に文句はねえが、どうにも腑に落ちねえんだよな。
A portion of the captains led by Harada voiced their palpable discontent, which, given the circumstances, had some bearing in logic.
今の幕府上層部は武力衝突を避けたい標準派が幅を利かせているはずだ。それがここに来て出撃命令となると、いささか勘ぐりたくもなるぜ。
でも上からの命令なんだし、出撃しねえわけにはいかねえだろ。
ええ、幸い羅刹隊は無傷で戦意も高い。新政府軍に鳥羽伏見での戦いの借りを存分に返すとしましょ
いや待ってくれ三男さん。今回の戦では羅刹隊は使わねえ。三男さんや平助を含めて羅刹隊は今回江戸に残している。まあ雪村、当然お前もだ。
What? Oh, okay.
う。待ってください。敵の手強さは鳥羽伏見の戦で身をもって知ったはずです。あの時新選組は新型の武器に全く手が出ませんでした。ですが唯一渡り合えたのは羅刹隊です。その我々抜きでどうするというのですか？
今回は幕府から新型の銃や大砲ももらってる。それに新規の大使をかき集めて戦場へ向かうんだ。羅刹隊を隠すにも限度ってもん分かってくれ三男さん。
今回の戦いで我々は不要だということですか？
待って、サナさん。
詳しい話はまた後だ。今日のところはここまでとしよう。以上、解散。
I hadn't even waited for Kondo-san to finish dismissing the troops before I sprinted after Sonan-san. My eyes scanned the vicinity, seeing if the two of us were alone, and I called out to a visibly shaken Sanan-san. Sana...
雪村君、君も実に滑稽だとは思いませんか。この新選組のために羅刹となり、死者となっても刀を振るい続け、にもかかわらず必要とされる時に役に立つことすらできない私たちの身、滑稽どころかそれを通り越して無様な話です。
But surely there's some explanation for why they would want the furry corpse to stay...
来ないでください。
As I extended my hand to rest upon Sanan-san's shoulder, he snapped at me coldly, flicking his hand. This would be a very good time for me to save! Before I lose anything else or the string crashes again.
お願いします。今のこの顔をあなたには見られたくありません。
Hold on one moment. Garnet, please do not be a toddler and crash again, I swear to God. There we go. A tumult plagued Sanan-san's restless heart. He had the will and talent to fight in battle, but against his control, he was caged in shadow. If a warrior couldn't prove his worth on the battlefield, then where? It was a humiliating blow. I searched within myself for a meaningful response. In the end, however, my mouth was agape with nothing to say, and we endured a bitter silence. I realized it was best to leave him be. As I spun to make my way back to the great hall, something stopped me from sliding the door open. I heard two voices in heated discussion from the other side of the door, and I gently pressed my ear against it to get a read of their conversation.
平介、お前も話ぐらいは聞いてると思う。今、江戸市中では辻斬り騒ぎが起きている。めった斬りにして血も残さないってやつだ。その辻斬りが始まったのは三男さんが巡察を始めた頃とぴったり重なっちまってる。
土方さんは三男さんを疑ってんのかよ。
そうは言ってねえ。だが三男さんを自由にしておけば怪しいと勘ぐるやつも出てくるだろう。あの人のことを信じてるが万一ってこともある。お前は江戸に残って三男さんの動きを監視してくれ。いざって時はお前の判断に任せる。
分かった。そのいざって時が来ないことを祈ってるけどな。
I couldn't stand to listen to another second. I cupped my hand over my mouth to keep from squealing, and I scurried away in panic. How could they? No, I refused to let myself entertain the notion. Even during our time in Kyo, Sanan-san had been continuously misunderstood. Not for 1 second had I believed that Sanan-san would be capable of such horrid and detestable acts. I reassured myself as I ran down the hall, holding my hand over my face to keep from crying. My mind evoked the image of Sanan-san toppling over in agony from his bloodlust, and I wept. In an effort to avoid garnering unwanted attention, the Shinsengumi chose to rebrand themselves as the Koyo... I keep saying this wrong every time. Koyo Regulatory Company as they departed Edo. My eyes are tired. Stress lines form on Sanan-san's pale face from irritation after having been wrongfully left behind. However, in front of the other troops who'd remained, he offered them a polite, genial smile. His seething discontent wasn't lost on anyone, however, not even me. Part of me was convinced that I had grown close enough to Sanan-san to get through to him somehow. But perhaps that day was still far in the distance. A deafening silence permeated the eerie, blustery night. The air carried a haunting chill, as if winter's ghosts lingered in blades of grass, and corridors. Sanan-san had allegedly left to perform his patrol of Edo Street that evening, so I followed after him. In my heart of hearts, I knew that Sanan-san was incapable of the savagery he had been accused of. I hid out of sight, monitoring him closely so that I could convince Hijikata-san, were I given the chance. Sanan-san wandered down street corners with an unseen burden on his shoulders, and I lost track of how long I had been following him when... Sanan-san vanished like a wisp into thin air, and I stood there dumbfounded. How could I have lost him? This was strange. He was just there a second ago.
動かないでください。
His raspy voice sparked from behind me, and a shiver traveled down my spine as the touch of cold steel pressed against my exposed neckline. My hands were growing clammy. I braced myself to feel the blade's edge slice through my neck, but instead, Sanan-san heaved a troubled sigh.
まったく誰かがこそこそと嗅ぎ回っているかと思えば可愛らしい忍びもいたものですね。
Did he just call us cute? Holy shit! He just called us cute.
雪村くん、一体こんなところで何をしているんですか？
The truth was difficult to admit, so my speech quickly developed into an incoherent stutter. Sanan-san was adept at performing an interrogation with a focused stare, which he demonstrated comfortably.
現在江戸の町を騒がしている危険な辻斬りの噂は私も知っています。そしてその犯人が私ではないかと土方君や東堂君が疑っていることも。
Oh, thank God, he knows. He knows. Yeah. Why is my head getting lightheaded? Well...
おや、その様子ではあなたも私を疑っているということですか？
As Sanan-san's pressure on me mounted, I said, No. No! Of course I believe you, Sanan-san. I know that there's no way you could have done such a thing. I just wanted to prove that you weren't guilty for myself. The more I spoke, the more foolish I felt. No doubt Sanan-san could navigate my nervous facade and realize that my feeble excuses held no weight. But the last thing I wanted for Sanan-san, to have the wrong impression about my intentions. So I... As I opened my mouth to resume fumbling through an explanation, Sana-san lifted his finger and pressed it against my lips to keep them shut. Hmm?
雪村君、そんな必死な顔をしないでください。まるで私が君をいじめているようで、思わず楽しくなってしまいますから。
Sanan, what the fuck do you mean by tantalizing? This is pretty cute, yeah. I still wonder what the fuck do you mean by tantalizing, Sanan? With every attempt to retort, Sana-san pushed my lips with his finger more forcefully. His assertiveness, however, was oddly charming.
おっと、これは失礼しました。
A thin smile formed on Sana-san's lips, and he began muttering in a relatively hushed tone.
それほど慌てなくても、君の気持ちは伝わっていますよ。でも心配は不要です。私は己の正義に恥じるようなことなど何一つしていませんから。
Sana-san then turned away from me, hidden from moonlight as he put some distance between us.
私は用事があるので送り届けることができませんが、大通りを通れば人目も多いでしょう。こんな夜更けに女の子が一人で出歩くものではありませんよ。さあ、早く戻りなさい。
I'm sorry, at that moment right there, my brain for some reason just imagined Sanan as like a train conductor, and I have no idea why. Brain. I was carefully making my way down the main road as Sana-san had suggested, having reached the compounds in good time, when I saw someone. It was Heisuke, stomping towards me in the middle of the courtyard, looking visibly distraught. Heisuke.
三男さんはなんて言ってた？あんま余計なことすんなよ。
How had he known where I'd been? Just as I was ready to flip the script on him, I shook my head, realizing how stupid I had been. Of course, Ichikata-san had ordered Heisuke to keep a watchful eye on Sana-san's activities, especially at night. My face was hot with shame, having failed to recognize how poorly my sleuthing skills were. Yeah, because we haven't trained at this at all. I don't think Sana-san's responsible for the murders. During the Battle of Toba Fushimi, Sana-san had fought tooth and nail to protect his fellow Shinsengumi men. He thwarted Father and Kauto's attempts to abduct me, which indebted me to him for all time. I knew yes! Seal, yes! I wish they had kept the long hair. I understand why they cut it, but I want to see Heisuke with his hair down. And I don't remember if we get that. I know we've seen Hijikata with his hair down and Okuta with his hair down. I just need their hair down. But I will admit Heisuke looks pretty goddamn cute with short hair. But long hair, give it to me. I think people tend to draw the wrong conclusions about him. His heart is full of warmth and kindness. Which leads me to believe that we've been looking at this wrong the whole time. He couldn't have done it.
俺だってそう信じてえよ。だけどな、お前にはわからねえかもしれねえけど、 羅刹の吸血衝動は本当に苦しいんだ。喉が渇いて血のことしか考えられなくなって、それこそ世界が反転した気分になっちまう。三男さんは羅刹になってから3年以上ずっとそれを味わってるんだ。
But even so, Sanan-san handled all of his adversities with grace and candor. So I bet this time around it'll be the same thing.
そんな泣きそうな顔すんなって。俺だって本当に疑ってるわけじゃねえよ。どっちにしても今は結論なんて出ねえ。とりあえず三男さんの帰りを待とうぜ。
As Heisuke and I meandered around the compounds, restless moments of tedium stretched into infinitude. What are these words? Tedium stretched to infinitude. I always question the words that these people choose.
Oya?
Sana-san returned at the break of dawn, and my eyelids sagged from exhaustion, squinting from the faint burn of the new day's light.
お二人ともこんな時間まで起きていたんですか？夜更かしは体に毒ですよ。
何言ってんだよ三男さん。こいつはともかく羅刹の俺は起きてるのが普通だろ。
Yeah, I was about to say, Sana, what are you talking about? Heisuke's literally a fury.
そうでしたね。これは失敬。
Behind his playful facade, Heisuke had a stern tone of voice that sent a chill up my forearms. It was unclear whether or not Sanan-san picked up on this disturbance, but he continued to walk past us.
では私もそろそろ休むとしましょう。羅刹らしくね。
Sanan-san curtly bowed his chin before briskly exiting. Both Heisuke and I shared a trepid sigh, and just as the two of us were about to head for our rooms, a rusty scent tickled my nose. Was that just my imagination? Wait, is that?
ああ、血の匂いだ。
Ooh. I gasped, wincing at the horrific possibilities. As an act of restraint against the stress bubbling in my stomach, I gulped deeply, fighting desperately to steady my shaky hands. I have an idea that might be happening, but I have no clue yet. Finally, chapter 2, which we should have been at like 30 minutes ago. Kofu Castle, under occupation of Imperial forces, was the Shinsugumi's target of ire, while the rest of us, including the Fury Corps, were left behind in Edo. Signs of a calm springtime wafted into the mansion's courtyard, along with news that our troops had tendered their surrender at Kofu under Kondo-san's command. One by one, the demoralized vanguard returned to Edo, slumped and battered. Their appearance was slovenly and gaunt, but most importantly, they lived. A wave of anxiety pinched at my worried heart, and when Nagakura and Harada sauntered into the gate, I attempted to parse some updates of the front lines. Oh no. We know what's coming, don't we?
くそ、やってられるかったんだ。
Nagakura lashed out in frustration, using his fist to pound the tatami mat as I treated him in the clinic. I patted the cuts and dried bloodstains covering his biceps with a damp cloth as he shouted wildly. So, what happened? How do you guys fight the Imperial Army without getting to Kofu Castle?
俺たちが甲府に着いた時にはもう敵さんが先に入場してやがったからな。
ちくしょう、近藤さんが故郷に錦を飾るとかなんとか言って日野のあたりで宴なんて開いてなきゃよ。
よせ新八、その一件がなくてもどの道間に合ったかはわからねえ。もっともその無駄な時間のせいで打つ手が限られちまったのも事実だな。何もかも今更だが、少なくとも城を取られて勝ち目が薄かった時点で撤退するって手はあったはずだ。
ああ、無駄な突撃を繰り返して大使を死なせることはなかったはずだ。あんなやり方をされちゃ俺たちはもうついていけねえよ。
Nagakura's tantrum made me flinch. If Nagakura felt this way, what was to stop anyone else? For Nagakura and Harada, who were men of their word, this vitriol was no empty threat. By the time Kondo-san had arrived back at the headquarters, the trio requested an immediate closed-door meeting. As expected, the meeting was acrimonious and soon followed by their immediate departure from the Shinsengumi before they joined another organization. Bye, boys. I'm sad you two had to leave us. Harada, Nagakura. A hazy, calamitous cloud had floated above the Shinsengumi ever since our defeat at Toba-Fushimi. It was an impenetrable force, slowly making its way over us before seeping into our fragile hearts. Later that evening, an impromptu meeting had been called by Kondo-san for the remaining Shinsengumi leaders within the compounds, a move that stirred some controversy. The topic of discussion was a detailed report of their shameful defeat in Katsunuma, which had far more information than what Harada and Nagakura had said. Their news, sadly, was worse than I anticipated. It wasn't a mere maelstrom of cannon fire that burned our group to cinders. There were warriors with white hair and red eyes that tore our men to shreds. The Imperial Army has its own Fury Corps?
はい、他の者ならともかく俺たちが見間違えるはずがありません。
奴ら撃たれても死ぬどころかそのまま突っ込んできやがった。ありゃ間違いなく羅刹兵だぜ。
Both Soma and Nomura were present at the meeting, briefing us on their experiences in Kofu with grave expressions. Hi, Nomura. But weren't you all fighting in broad daylight? How were the Furies able to march out there?
弱点を克服した新型ということでしょうね。やはり私たちが行くべきでした。
A deafening silence fell amongst the captains. The Shinsengumi's Fury Corps had been encumbered by their lack of mobility in sunlight, creating a sort of check and balance to their immense abilities. If such a limitation were lifted as Sanan-san suggested, nothing could feasibly stop them from becoming the strongest unit in the Shinsengumi's command. It was a startling thought, one that called into question how we would wage war in the future.
ともあれ、新型の羅刹が出てきたという事実が指し示しているのは一つ。まず間違いなく光道さんが新政府軍に協力しているということだ。
Suddenly, everyone pointed their gaze towards me. Hey! I didn't do anything! This is not my fault! Stop looking at me! Before I had a chance to open my mouth, however, Sana-san stepped forward and swiftly interjected.
敵方に羅刹兵が出てきた以上、 他に手はありません。羅刹に対抗できるのは羅刹だけです。局長、次こそ私たちに出撃の許可を。
そうだな。それしか。
ダメだ。今こちらも羅刹兵を繰り出すのは危険すぎる。
ふざけないでください。味方が使っていた時は必要な力だとしていたのに、敵が用いてきたと聞いた途端、危険だからと遠ざけるというのですか。おじけづいたのですか、土方君。
新型の羅刹と刃を交えて分かったんだ。日の光を厭わない新型とは言っても、結局血に狂う性質は元の羅刹と同じ。いや、むしろより悪化してやがった。そんな連中にこちらも羅刹をもって対抗すればどうなる。味方も敵も民すらも関係ない。戦は互いに血を絞り尽くすまで終わらねえこの世の地獄に変わっちまうだろ。
だから我々を戦わせないというのですか。
そうだ、今回に限ったことじゃねえ。今後羅刹隊は一切の活動を禁じる。当然羅刹の研究も禁止だ。
Ishikata-san stared sternly at Sanan-san, whose own fiery glare was accentuated by the room's awkward silence. After a minute, Sanan-san quietly accepted Hijikata-san's order by tilting his head downwards, and I saw his shoulders tremble faintly underneath his snug jacket. The meeting continued onward, and not a single word came from Sanan-san all the way to its conclusion. At the end, everyone quietly walked to their rooms. Pardon me, Sana-san. Am I interrupting? I've brought you some tea.
ああ、雪村君ですか。どうぞ入ってください。
After noticing Sanan-san's lack of participation, I visited Sanan-san with tea, hoping to cheer his wavering spirits. Lines of worry wrinkled his pale face, and we shared no words as he blew the steam rising from his cup. By the time Sanan-san decided to open up, the tea had become lukewarm, and I felt indifferent about drinking it out of courtesy.
雪村君、君がわざわざ訪ねてきてくれたのは先ほどの一件についてですね。
I did. I know that it's none of my business, but I've been worried about you.
私はね、度重なる血の衝動に繰り返し苦しめられている今でも羅刹になったことを後悔していません。日の光の下で生きられぬ体となり果てても新選組のために戦える体を得たのですから。人に戻れるならば戻りたいという気持ちももちろんありますが、だから私はこの羅刹となった自分に誇りさえ持っています。
Which explains your resoluteness earlier. The thrust of Sanan-san's despondence came from his ill-fated injury to his left arm, which would be enough to crush the spirits of any warrior. Then came the introduction of Kashitaro Ito, whose promotion to deputy commander cost Sanan-san his position and influence within the Shinsengumi. Only by consuming the water of life had Sanan-san regained his strength, physically and emotionally, to pick back up his life's shattered pieces. However, he was now back to square one, having his skill and character deemed unfit to serve in battle. A vein bulged in Sanan-san's forehead as he balled his hands into tight fists.
私は羅刹。羅刹は私。その羅刹を否定されてしまえば、私にもはや存在意義などない。
Sanan-san cast his downtrodden words and looked away. I wanted to comfort him, to tell him that he was worth everything and more to me, but I could not, despite my best wishes. Sanan-san hadn't been looking for words of affirmation or assurances. He merely needed an outlet. And so I listened, hoping that by letting him bare his soul, he could lighten the pressure on himself.
今の羅刹では出撃することができないというなら、あとは羅刹の改良を重ねるほかありません。行動さんの新型をも超える一切の弱点がない完成した羅刹。羅刹でありながら人間に近い存在。そう羅刹の力を持ちながら人間に戻れるような改良が必要です。そうすれば土方君も考え直さざるを得ないでしょう。
Sanan-san's tone of voice crescendoed and he allowed himself to indulge in the excitement of this prospect. I held my tongue as the bittersweet moment unfolded.
ですが、ここまで研究しても決定的な成果は上げられなかったのも事実。何か鍵となるものがなければ、それも夢のまた夢なのでしょうね。
I gazed at him fondly and decided to say, "Here's my blood." I hoped that somehow I could channel the frustration from his despair into something meaningful, even if it were just a temporary reprieve. I spoke up, almost to the point of blurting out, "Would a demon's blood help?" I recall you expressing interest in me when it was revealed to me that I am a demon. Sure, both Furies and demons possess healing abilities, but I have no problem under sunlight. Maybe you could use a demon's, my blood, for research purposes, of course.
確かに、そう考えていた時もありました。いえ、正直に話せば、今もそうなのかもしれません。
Yeah, when you almost fucking brought down your sword onto me. Yeah, I remember that.
ですが、雪村君、君は自分が何を言っているのか分かっているんですか？研究を続けるため、あなたはこの先ずっと血を提供しなければならなくなります。その結果、成功しても血が必要となり、失敗してもさらなる研究に血が必要になります。それでもなお君は私の実験のためにその身を捧げようというのですか？
If I can somehow ease your pain and frustration, then yes, I'm fully ready to cooperate with your research. Anything you want, Sanan-san. My body is yours as long as you will it.
あなたは
I asked myself if I were overcome with pity. Was this an olive branch? A hope of appeasing a troubled mind on the verge of implosion? Implosion? I snuffed out the thought almost immediately. Sanan-san was vulnerable, enduring a state of constant vigilance in regards to his actions and his bloodlust. Yet he shared a cordial, inviting smile with me daily. And back in Toba Fushimi, he risked his life protecting me against Father and Kauru's aggressive attacks. How much more could a gentle heart suffer before it turned to dust? At the very least, I I want to bear some of that burden alongside Sanan-san. It was what attracted or endeared me to him. These thoughts formed a constellation of high esteem as I stared longingly into Sanan-san's eyes. He gazed at me coolly, tracing an invisible line from my wrist up to my face. Sanan-san was an enigmatic, perceptive figure. When his eyes first became a shade of bright crimson, I was consumed with unspeakable fear. Years later, here I stood, offering my body on a silver platter for his use, the thought of which enticed me. Please, Sanan-san, don't give up on yourself, or let the weight of the world crush you. You're worth so much to me. Eventually, Sanan-san let out a tired sigh, as if he were clearing his throat of his anxious thoughts.
あなたの気持ちは受け取りました。ありがとう、雪村君。
Sanan-san muttered softly before shaking his head in trepidation.
しかし現在は新選組として羅刹の研究も止められている状況です。とりあえず今は土方君の誤解を解く道を探ることにしましょう。
Sanan-san pursed his lips, taking his teacup and gulping it in one sip. After he placed it down, I grabbed the cup and stood to begin my exit. Well, I suppose I'll be leaving now. Please have a pleasant evening, Sanan. Just as I had turned my head over my shoulders towards his bedroom door. Time for round 2! I heard a breathing grunt escape Sanan-san's lips, and then the startling thought of his body collapsing to the floor. Oh my. Oh my? Really? Was this another episode of Bloodlust? I must, and say it with me now, give him blood. I had no second to spare in hesitation. My hand gripped the hilt of my kodachi, and I winced as I felt the sharp string of the blade against my wrist. I bit my lip in discomfort, despite realizing that this pain paled in comparison to Sanan-san's. Sanan-san, here, take a sip. He slithered tensely over to my bleeding arm. Slithered. Specifically the word slither. A much more fitting... It's fitting for Sanan-san. He's just a snake. It's what I've always seen him as, so it's fine. He slithered tensely over to my bleeding arm, wrapping his lips sensuously around the cut. The vigor of his slurping filled the room with its sound. Yeah, slither. Just slither. I felt a dull pressure from his eager sucking, followed by a tickle that made my body shiver. As I took in deep breaths, Sanan-san softly whispered,
すみません、雪村君。君の目の前だというのに。
No, I'm glad that I was able to be here when it happened. Sanan-san, you don't have to suffer all of this torture alone.
全く君はそんな言葉は不用意に言うものではありませんよ。甘えたくなってしまいますから。
Wow, it just cut again. That's surprising. Sanan is a snake. He's a snake for way too many fucking reasons. It just fits him. He was given an animal. He was given a pet. It'd be a snake. Sanansan's condition, it seemed, was minute in scale. Regardless of their preparedness, war with the Imperial Army was steadily approaching, and the Shinsengumi was scrambling to meet their foe. Kondo-san and Hijikata-san each conducted recruitment within taverns and merchant centers throughout all of Edo to bolster their rapidly thinning ranks. Sanan-san, on the other hand, sat idly by in the compounds, seizing the opportunity to convince Hijikata-san of the Fury Corps' usefulness whenever the latter returned. On a temperate, modest spring morning, I had been sweeping leaves scattered along the floor within the hallway when Sanan-san was pleading with Hijikata-san.
土方君、こちらの羅刹隊を出撃させるかどうかはともかくとして、敵方の羅刹が脅威となるのは事実です。ですから一つ提案なのですが、光道さんと接触してはどうでしょうか。
ちょっと待ってくれ。光道さんと話をするってことか。今は敵なんだぞ。
それは分かっています。ですが鳥羽伏見の際に協力を持ちかけられました。おそらく交渉の余地はあります。彼の研究成果が手に入れば、羅刹のさらなる強化、もしくは羅刹を救う方法さえわかるかもしれません。
敵方に潜り込んでその情報を手に入れようって魂胆か。
話が早くて助かります。
鳥羽伏見での話は俺も聞いた。そうそう話に乗ってくれる相手とは思えねえがな。
それは交渉次第でしょう。うまく折り合いをつけられれば。
あんたの言いたいことはわかる。だが先日の戦で敵の羅刹兵がうちの大使を何人殺したと思ってる。あれを生み出したのは間違いなく光道さんだ。俺が許可を出したところでそんな話に納得してくれるやつはいねえよ。
Sanan-san ain't happy. Hijikata-san stormed away flippantly, and Sanan-san eyed his back with gritted teeth. I hovered behind Sanan-san nervously, hesitant to speak my piece as he seethed in front of me. Sanan-san.
ああ、お見苦しい姿を見られてしまいましたね。
That's quite alright. I'm just curious. Had you seriously intended on reaching out to my father?
聞いていたんですか。協力でも本気でもありませんから、安心してください。
I smiled warmly, but on the inside I was keenly aware of how pertinent furthering research on the Furies was to Sanan-san. His perseverance showed no signs of faltering, even in the opposing face of Hijikata-san's ardent disapproval, a fact I found rather admirable. In fact, it wasn't unbecoming at all. Sanan-san was regaining purpose and was intent on showing it. But father was the root cause of our recent struggles. To that end, I could empathize with Hijikata-san's point, especially when innocent lives were at stake.
羅刹として戦うことも研究も取り上げられ、ただ発作に苦しむ日々を過ごす毎日。そして土方君は私の行動に不信感を抱き始めている。本当に居場所がなくなってしまいましたね。
Damn. That's not how it is at all. I'm sure it's all just a big misunderstanding with Hijikata-san.
君は本当に優しいですね。ですが同情する必要はありませんよ。 許可がいただけないならいただけないなりに行動をするしかありません。待っているだけの時間がもったいないですからね。
We're just moving scenes. We're schmoving. The sabers continued to rattle, so to speak. I was feeling unwound on one particular day, which had been validated by Soma approaching me with some rather unfortunate news. What? Sanan-san's missing?
はい、土方副長から謹慎を命じられていたはずですが、訪ねてみると姿が見えませんでした。
それどころか豚舎のどこにもいねえんだ。今島田さんたちが必死に探してる。
俺たちも今から捜索に当たりますので、何かありましたら知らせてください。
Before I could even respond, Soma and Nomura dashed towards the front gate. My mind swirled in tireless worry. If Sanan-san disappeared, I wondered what happened. I sifted through possible explanations and couldn't help but lean upon one. My tepid heart tightened, and I covered it with my hand. Shallow breaths staggered from my mouth. I turned my head to find Hijikata-san and Heisuke leaving the compounds with pensive expressions, and I couldn't help but call out to them. Hey, wait! Please!
しずる。
悪いが、今はお前と話してる暇はねえ。用があるなら後回しにしてくれ。
Ow, I got compared to a fly. I heard about what happened. If you're planning on searching for Sanan-san, then I request that you allow me to join you.
今回はダメだ。状況は最悪の方向に動いちまってるかもしれねえし、そうなったらお前に見せるわけには。
What do you mean, take a turn for the worse? I stared blankly at Heisuke, whose expression turned sheepish as he averted his gaze. Hijikata-san, perhaps frustrated by the whole affair, heaved a tender sigh.
そんなに来たきゃついてこい。ただし何があっても知らねえぞ。
おい、土方さん。
仕方ねえだろ。こうでもしなきゃ食いついてきそうな顔してんだからよ。それに今は問答してる時間も惜しい。行くぞ。
As Hijikata-san kicked at the ground to a sprint, Heisuke and I tailed him frantically. Oh boy!
お前も察してるだろ。三男さんが変な真似しないように、最近あの人の動きを牽制してた。
Edo's dim streets were filled with a tense, placid chill. Faint creaks made me flinch as I walked beside Hijikata-san, who scoffed before quietly speaking to me.
どうにも最近の三男さんは焦燥感に突き動かされてるように見えるからな。
You're reading too much into it. He's just been frustrated by his situation, that's all.
怪しいのはそれだけじゃねえんだよ。今回ほどあからさまじゃねえけど、今までも三男さんは夜中に豚舎を抜け出してどこかへ行ってた形跡があるんだ。で、ついでに言うと、この間辻斬りの話をしたろ。その事件、最近じゃますます被害者の数が増えてる。
Well, I think... Before I could offer him a rebuttal... I heard a blade cleaving through flesh, followed by the frightening sound of a bone cracking and a blood-curdling scream. What the heck was that?
近いな。こっちの路地だ。ついてこい。
The alley was narrow, and I was careful not to trip haphazardly on thick pieces of lumber near our feet. I saw a murky, viscous liquid trickling towards me. It was dim, save for the hazy moonlight above us. In the back of the alley, covered in shadows, stood
意外なお客さんですね。
a Ronin covered in deep lacerations was lying in a thickening pool of fresh blood. Ronin, a warrior without a domain or banner to serve or affiliate.
皆さんどうかされましたか？
Sanan-san asked us coolly, flickering chunks of flesh from his bloody sword as if it were a casual affair. Holy shit! Sanan-san!
下がってろ千鶴。
こいつはどういうことだ、三男さん。説明はしてもらえるんだ。
この状況で私の説明を信じてもらえるんですか？
信じる信じねえは聞いてからだ。
Oh shit. Both Hijikata-san and Heisuke swiftly drew out their swords, moving their feet into an offensive stance. Upon seeing that, I chose to plead with them to stop. Please, stop!
下がれって言っただろう。さっさとそこをどけ。
No! I refuse! I leaped in front of Hijikata-san, raising my arms to block their path as I strained my voice, shouting, Why? Why? Sanan-san is your friend. How could you possibly think of killing him without hearing him out?
身内がしでかしたことは俺たちで肩をつける。だからそこをどけ。雪村！
何がおかしいんだよ三男さん。
いいえ、まさかこの状況で味方してくれる人がいるとは思わなくて少し驚いてしまいました。
Hijikata-san and Sanan-san traded hateful glares. An electrifying tension filled the air, making it nearly impossible for me to draw breath. I don't like that. In the blink of an eye, I saw someone dart forward, though it hadn't been whom I was expecting. What? Everyone's attention immediately shifted towards the source of the high-pitched laughter. That was supposed to be laughter? To our bewilderment, the Ronin's flesh began to disintegrate like dust, scattering throughout the alley by the wind. I threw my hands up to cover my face. It blew against the back of my palms, and I realized that its texture was akin to ash.
なんだよこいつは。一体どうなっちまってんだ。
羅刹の力の限界ですよ。羅刹の強さの源は生命力。羅刹は自らの寿命を削りながら力を振るっているのです。当然のことですが、それを使い果たせば朽ちゆくのみ。
つまりあなたたちもいずれはこうなる可能性が高いということです。
Oh.
天霧、なんでお前が。
ご苦労様でした、三男圭介。あなたの協力に感謝します。
As the demon Kyuju Amagiri made his entrance, all of us were aghast, and I flinched in horror. Amagiri turned his eerie gaze away from Sanan-san and addressed us directly with a worse smirk.
私は新政府軍に頼まれて実験の最中に脱走した羅刹兵たちを追っていました。羅刹兵は江戸に赴き、辻斬りに見せかけて人間を襲っていたのです。
Yeah, that's what I thought.
偶然にも市中を見回る彼と出会いまして、協力をお願いしていた次第です。新政府内で勢力を求める行動と羅刹兵の情報を見返りに。
そんなんさ、あんたまさか新政府のそれも鬼と通じてやがったのか。
彼らも光道さんの羅刹のことを苦々しく思っていたようですから、一時的な協力です。それに敵型羅刹の情報は我々に必要と判断しての行動ですが、勝手な行動を取ったことは事実。処分はいかようにもお受けしましょう、土方副長。
詳しい話は屯所に戻ってから聞かせてもらうぞ。
It was a huge relief for Sun to prove that he wasn't the culprit of the swath? That's a word. Swath of murders plaguing Edo. At the same time, however, my opinion of Sun-Sun's intentions was clouded by his secret collusion.
さて、私の役目は果たしましたので、この辺りでおいとまさせてもらいましょう。おのおの方、どうか悔いのない選択を。
Before any of us could stop and ask him to clarify, Amagiri vanished like mist into thin air, leaving us dumbfounded by his cryptic message. For a brief moment, I stood still, silently deliberating what this could mean for myself and for Sun. Regardless of whether or not Sun was acting with the Shinsengumi's goals in mind, his connection with Amagiri was suspicious, if not outright treasonous. It was in clear violation of the rules of conduct, punishable only by seppuku. But since Sun was technically already dead, it was a hollow sentence. Ultimately, the Shinsengumi strictly ordered Sun to remain in probation under house arrest. Meanwhile, the Shinsengumi had been preoccupied with their next course of action. Because Edo had surrendered to an armistice with the Imperial Army, remaining within the city was no longer a suitable option for the Shinsengumi. The Shinsengumi decided once more to relocate, this time to the city of Aizu under the jurisdiction of Lord Katamori Matsudaria, to mobilize against the Imperials. On the night before we were ordered to leave Edo, I was nestled in my futon, wide awake with my thoughts. Twilight was at its peak, enveloping our compounds in an impenetrable darkness. As fatigued as I had felt, shutting my eyes for longer than a minute was proving to be quite the task. I took deep breaths, attempting to calm my heart's heavy rhythm, and finally drifted to sleep. In my dream, a visitor slinked into my room quietly. It was Sun, wearing a gentle, affectionate smile with a melancholy twinkle in his eyes.
Yukimura-kun.
Sun? Was this real?
よく眠っていますね。可愛らしい寝顔です。
A warmth tickled down my scalp as he patted my head. He ran his fingers softly through my hair, tickling my head, though I had no energy to react.
今日こうして来たのは他でもありません。どうしても君にお礼を言いたかったんです。あなたは江戸に帰ってきてからの私を何度も慰めてくれましたね。 皆から疑わしかった私をずっと信じてくれたのもあなただけでした。私には君が思うほどの価値などないというのに。
Why? I felt like calling out to him, asking him, but even in my dream, I was situated as a passenger, unable to move my hands or lips in response.
それだけではありません。初めて落ち水を飲もうとした際、君は必死に止めようとしてくれた。羅刹となり血をすする存在となった私を恐れることなくいつも世話してくれて、こんな私を信じ続けるなんて本当に君はどうかしていますね。そこまで優しいと私も勘違いしてしまいそうです。あなたが私のことを好いていてくれるのかと。
By this point, Sanonsun's face was inches from mine. Sanonsun pressed his supple lips against my forehead, igniting a flame deep in the pit of my chest. For a dream, the sensation was unmistakably real, covering me from head to toe in sweet bliss. If this evening proved to be an actual dream, then I never wanted to awake from it.
正解は聞きませんよ。所詮は叶わぬ夢ですから。聖者は死者に恋をしてはいけない。それが世の断りです。
He spoke in a hushed tone and backed away from me. Please, please don't go. My entire body yearned for the closeness of his skin, but I could neither open my eyes nor lift a finger.
本当はこの後もずっとこの身が灰になるまで君を隣で守り続けたかった。ですが私にはやるべきことがある。新選組にいては果たせない願いが。だからさようなら。
I'm stunned. Legit stunned. I awoke in a daze, untied by a heavy heart and a distracted mind. For some odd, inexplicable reason, tears began to stream down my cheeks. I wiped them softly and made my way to Sanonsun's quarters. But as I had suspected, he was nowhere to be found. Memory of his farewell came to me like deja vu, and I found a neatly folded kimono beside his satin futon and nothing else. No research notes, no tomes, no evidence of his stay. Most of all, the man whom I wanted to see most. Jesus! Alright. Okay, we've reached chapter 3. Even with a freaking reset. I'm calling it there for now, because we still have tomorrow. And a couple of days after that. Y button. We're saving it. Right, so tomorrow we're probably gonna finish this room because there's only 2 chapters left. And after we complete Sun and Sun's route, we're going to go on to Iba, which means I have to have Blue spin a wheel so that we figure out which two come after Iba, because I'm not sure. Thank you, Theo. You're welcome. But besides that, 9 p.m. tonight, EST, we are coming for art stream. So if you want to see me work on making full art for my characters from Ties of Fates, which they all need, you're welcome to come on, stop by. I'll probably have chill music. I have no idea if I'm going to be alone tonight, because I think people are either sick or off playing Tears of the Kingdom. But there's that. So, I wish you a good day, good night, whatever hour it is that you're watching. Have a good day, and I'll see you later tonight for art stream. Bye!